All right, in this segment, we're going to look at 12b and how to create the code to open up files. If we look at part 1 of what's required, so we're going to create a function to pass a variable. We're going to open the file then, print the contents of the file, and then we're going to close it. We're going to update the function to include it 2 times, once for f1 and once for f2 variable. So we're going to create the 2 variables, and our sample output is going to be something like this. So there's a dogs.txt file and a resume.txt file that's in the system that will be displayed. And to kind of explain of what is actually going on with this particular component here, what we're going to take a look at real quick is information about Python files and how to go about reading the files. So before we get into code, let's kind of explain the syntax of what's going on. So at minimum, when you open up a file, we have a variable name that we're going to be utilizing. We're going to utilize a syntax called open and then the file name. So that works something along like this. So open is going to create what we call a file object, right, utilizing the open statement. We're going to also provide additional modes in terms of how we're opening up the file. Now these modes could be read, write, or append. Now clearly we know what read would be, read only, write. Now you got to be careful how this works, because when you utilize the file name, put a mode of write, if there's an existing file of the same name that we're adding here, the write will basically write over or delete everything that's currently there. And then again, this will save all the information to the variable that we chose. So real quick here again, the R is going to open up for read only. No changes can be made or written to. And that is also the default option, so technically we don't have to put the R there. Again, we have the W, which is going to open the file for writing. If the file already exists, it's going to erase the contents. Now, if it doesn't exist, it will also create it. And then we have the append. We'll open the file to be written to. All the data will be written and appended to the end. Again, if the file does not exist, it will also create it as well. The dangerous one is the write one. So if the file does exist, it's going to basically delete everything, or everything is going to be erased. So here's the sample code snippet. So again, we have a file variable. It's going to utilize the open and whatever our file name is, blocks of code. And then to make sure that this properly gets closed up, so now we have our close, and it closes the file to avoid any kind of issues, like, for example, resource leaks or possible file corruption. To give you a quick example of a code snippet, so here is our value variable that we end up utilizing called book1. We're going to open up the file, and the file name is intro to programming.txt. We're going to execute whatever the blocks of code we need to do, and then you notice here we're closing the file. So book1 is our variable, and close. The close file again avoids issues like resource leaks or file corruption. So now let's go ahead and take a look at our code and how we're going to write all this. Right, looking at our syntax template, so right now I just have one particular function in the main, and that is basically to print the program header. And you'll notice here that the output is going to be program output, open the file, and I'm utilizing F1. And up here, F1 is going to print dogs.txt. So basically, if we end up running this particular code, it will just show the header information out once. So that's what it's doing right there. But what you need to do then is write the appropriate code So we're going to basically specify a function that's going to open file, print the file contents, and then close the file. So here we're going to create our function. We're going to start out with the def function, open file, and then we're going to toss in a parameter here called file name, because we're going to eventually add a call statement to utilize this function. Right. Next line, we're opening up the file. Open file utilizing the assigned variable. Then we're going to utilize a print statement to print file, and we're going to utilize the so-called read. So this is going to read the contents of the file. Our next line is just going to be just an extra line, and then we need to close the file. So then we're utilizing file 1. So in this particular code snippet, what's being done is this. Parameter gets passed to my open file, so I'm utilizing the local variable now for this particular function named file name. I'm utilizing the open statement to open up the file name and assigning it to a variable called file1. To print it, I'm utilizing the variable of file1, and I'm utilizing another keyword here, read, to print the contents of the file. Once it's done, we'll print it just a blank line, and then to close the file. The other thing that we need to do is down below here, we need to create a call function. So we're going to say open up my file 1. So that's going to utilize dogs.txt. We want to do this twice, so we're going to update the message header that we're outputting now information about file 2. And we need to write another message here, or another call statement to open up file 2. Now, when we take a look to see what happens when we run the code here. So it opened up the file called dogs.txt. This is what's inside the contents of the file. And in the second time we're calling this, it's displaying the contents of resume.txt. So that's pretty much it with this particular program.